Hi everyone, it's Melissa, and today I am sharing with you what I read in February. I read 3 books and DNF'd one. I'm going to start with the DNF. Unfortunately, I did not finish A Room with a View by Forster. Not that it was a bad book, but it just didn't hold my attention. It didn't have that little something extra to make me want to keep reading. It's set during the Edwardian period. 2 women have come to Italy. One of them is quite young, and she is basically being chaperoned by her cousin, I think it is, her older cousin. And for the younger cousin, Lucy, this is basically her first foray into life outside of Edwardian England, and she is stumbling upon a world that she doesn't know anything about, and this is the first time she has really been able to, I guess in some terms, escape the strictness of her life in England. And I guess what it boils down to is I found this book interesting, but not necessarily compelling. I found the social critique interesting, kind of the setup of this interesting, the setting interesting, but the characters just couldn't pull me through. I think I felt pretty similarly when I read A Passage to India, which I did complete, and I think I ended up giving it 4 stars, but that was mostly due to the fact that I found that story's characters a bit more interesting than these characters. But I felt similarly in terms of I wasn't necessarily like super compelled by the story, but I was pulled along by my interest in the time period or in the cultures. Although I ended up enjoying Passage to India at the end, I think that it's a book that I probably won't read again. And I'm sure if I had finished Room with a View, I might have enjoyed the story as a whole. But I just had this feeling that it wasn't going to be worth it at the end to keep going. I'm not sure if this is just a taste issue with Forster as an author on the whole. I suspect it is, because A Room with a View and Passage to India are his, I would argue, 2 most famous books. So I'm wondering, do I bother reading the other Forsters I have? Or should I just say that, you know what, his writing isn't necessarily bad, but they aren't going to be stories that are going to call out to me. So unfortunately, that was a DNF this month. There were 3 books that I did read. The first one is Behold the Dreamers by Imbolo and Mbue. I'll put a picture up here. This was a library book, so I've already returned it. This is a story that follows 2 families. Primarily, it follows a family from Cameroon who have immigrated to New York City. The father has gotten a job as a chauffeur for a very wealthy financial guy. The word's escaping me. This is set right before the financial crisis and during the financial crisis, the 2008 economic crisis, and it weaves that into the story, I think, actually really well. The other family that we follow is the wealthy family. We follow more so the Cameroonian family, but it's interesting to see both of their lives kind of in parallel. They are obviously connected through employment, but also they are both having problems. The Cameroonian family is having like financial problems. More so, they are having problems in terms of immigration status and wanting to stay in the US, and not having like permanent visas or papers or anything like that, and possibly getting deported, or at least the father being deported back to Cameroon. The wife is going to school part-time. She wants to go to pharmacy school, so they're trying to establish this life. They're having these potential immigration problems. The wealthy family is having a more kind of like relationship and problems in their family life and their relationship as a married couple. And the father is, typically workaholic and that kind of thing. I found the characters all interesting. What I also found interesting is how the author handed the privilege of the wealthier family, the white family. So race plays a part in this, immigrant status plays a part in this, wealth plays a part in this, and I like how she depicted that, and that this family wasn't necessarily like a bad family, and they were most of the time like quite nice people. Being nice does not mean you're not ignorant. Being nice doesn't mean that you're necessarily caring. Being nice doesn't mean that you're necessarily invested in your employees' lives. This family was not depicted as all out villains, but it does show their kind of lack of understanding on how their decisions like strongly affect the lives of this other family. The immigrant family from Cameroon isn't perfect either. They are not portrayed necessarily as victims. They have their flaws. They're not doing everything right. So I liked that aspect of the characters. I think the plot might have been a bit straightforward. I believe this was a debut book, so I'd be interested in reading Mbue's other books. I think she has at least one other novel that I'm aware of. But yeah, it was an interesting look at the lives of these two families in parallel, how they're both disintegrating, but in very different ways. I think it was a decent debut novel. The second book I read was Klara and the Sun by Kazuo Ishiguro. I really enjoyed this. I also gave this 4-star, but I think this is a book that if I read it again might be elevated to a 5-star. I think there's a lot going on in this novel, and I think it's going to take rereading to bring out everything, all of the layers of this. This book is about Klara, who is an AF, an artificial friend, essentially a robot, who is built to be a companion to a child or teenager. Children are lonely in this world. They don't get a lot of socialization. Kids don't really go to schools anymore. They are tutored at home, like virtually. A lot of like social norms are very different in this world in how people relate to one another, and these robots exist as companions for children and teenagers. So we follow Klara as she is placed with a family, or is bought, I should say, by a family. I don't want to say too much about the story from there, but she's trying to help the girl that she's with. The girl is ill, and yeah, Claire's doing all she can to help her. And I'm going to leave it at that. I think part of the enjoyment of this book is figuring out things as they're revealed to you. Klara is a very interesting narrator because she's kind of naive to how the world is. Her only experience is being in the store that sells these robots. And while she's intelligent and she's very observant about the world, she doesn't necessarily understand the world. She doesn't have any firsthand experience of the world. So you are getting fed information about this world through her lens, like as she interprets it. There is an atmosphere of mystery and a bit of foreboding, and I really liked that feeling. I felt tense a lot of times reading this, but in a great way. I love feeling tense. I love that feeling, knowing something's wrong, but not knowing exactly what it is. This book explores humanity and grief and memory and like relationships. I think the relationships between the characters are sometimes odd, but really inform a lot about human relationships in general. It's quite a slow-moving novel, and there's not a ton of plot. It's more about the characters, and particularly about Klara and like her finding or her realizing what her life's purpose is. The last book I finished in February was The Fire Next Time by James Baldwin. It's a short little book. It is 2 or 3, I can't remember. I think 2 maybe, essays. They're written kind of like letters, I suppose. The first one is definitely written in letter format. He's addressing his nephew. The second one, maybe more so an open appeal to the public, I think. I don't remember it being specifically addressed to a particular person. But I gave this 5 stars. It was excellent. I'm not sure what I could say that is not already out there. I am sure most, if not all, the people watching this video have at least heard of this book. It deals with civil rights movement in America. It was written in the 60s during this time. It deals with like discrimination and racism and I liked the section in here talking about religion, both in terms of Baldwin's experience with the church, like Christian church, and talking about like during this time period the rise of Islam in the Black community, and I thought that was all very interesting. And of course, I mean, this is sad, but this is the truth. The book is so current, despite it being written in the 60s, and not all of the problems depicted are the exact same, of course. It's just mind boggling how current this book is. It was so relevant to today, explaining like current issues in ways that were better explained than like a lot of other places I've read explaining current issues. I mean, that's just both impressive and sad. If I had to sum this up, I think it is a mixture of James Baldwin's personal experience and a synthesis of the civil rights movement and current day America at that time, but like I said, sadly, still relevant today. I can't recommend this book enough. I think it packed a strong punch for such a short book. So that's everything that I read in February. If you've read any of these books and want to share your thoughts on them, please do so in the comments below. I would love to have a chat with you. As always, thank you all so much for watching, and we'll chat soon. Take care. Bye.